Hello, precious family. This is Rainbow. Mother Elisha has asked me to share with you a dream my husband had and a vision I had a few weeks ago. It's important to note that when we have dreams or I have visions like this, we always keep them to ourselves and we only share it with a few people. But for some reason, this particular one just pushed us right out of our comfort zone. Let's start with the dream my husband had. He described the setting as him standing in the middle of our city square, in front of a monument they have there that tells about some of our country's history. The place was dark and gloomy as though a heavy thunderstorm had passed on through. In place of the monument stood a hourglass-looking figure with a globe sitting on it. My husband said in his spirit he just knew it was a doomsday clock. He stood there staring at it. One guy was walking past him and he called the guy and said, "Look, it would seem we are almost out of time." The guy didn't respond to him, but went on his way. No one seemed to notice. He said he didn't know how at the time he knew, but it came on him strongly that the rapture was days away, or it would even happen within that week, and the dream ended. Now for my vision. Jesus and I were sitting under a tree, just spending time together, when I came up with the subject of how many souls we had saved that day. By we, I wasn't meaning him and I, but rather souls in general. He stretched out his hand and said, "Come, let me show you something." So I got up and went with him. We arrived at this building where a book was being kept. I presumed it was a big book. But standing in front of it, it looked like a standard-sized novel book with a lot of pages. The covers were golden, and its pages were a very light shade of gold. This book was a book where things were not written there by an angel or overseer, but rather the page was constantly updated as the information came in, all by itself. When I got there, the book was open and turned into 2 blank pages that were not updated yet. I remember the Lord saying along the lines of, "This is where all the names of the saved souls go," amidst him explaining to me how the book worked and how the different categories worked. To my limited understanding, I believe there were 2 categories, at least according to what I had been shown. The first was the potential souls, that if only they got a little more grace, a little more mercy, they could get saved and give their lives to Jesus totally. Then the other category is the saved souls, who receive that grace and have gotten saved and given their souls to Christ. So, how much for today? I asked. Suddenly, with no one touching the book, information began to update itself on the page, with 2 pages full of names. The names were people on the earth. I was overjoyed and excited that the pages were full for that day, but the Lord was sad, and with a sigh he said, "No, daughter, this is the potential souls that could be saved today." In shock, I asked him, "So how many have been saved today?" The book erased itself and started to update itself again. This time, it didn't fill the 2 pages. It didn't even fill 1 page or half or a quarter of it. The names were only a few lines on that page. My heart sunk to the floor because I couldn't believe it. "Let me show you something else," he said. We appeared at the gate of heaven. On both sides of the street, there was a line of people waiting. He said, "This is the welcome committee. When you enter into heaven, you get one. It's usually relatives, saints, and those who are quite fond of you that you never knew of." I asked if it was the same for everyone, but he said no, with everyone it changes. In a moment, I saw a beautiful young woman walk through the gates, and the Lord told me she had just died. He even asked me if I wanted to help him put the robe on her. I do not remember what the robe represents, but everyone gets one. I agreed, and as she met him, I handed him the robe, and he clothed her. The same happened with another man. There didn't seem to be much people coming in the gates at all. I was heartbroken to no end. In my poor reasoning, I tried to explain to him that so many die every day, and if a few hundred make it every day, then the numbers would add up, and, every week, right? Wrong. He sighed again and said, "A few hundred make it to heaven, Rainbow, while a few thousand make it to hell." And that was the end of my vision. It broke my heart to know he was hurting so bad, because even though the numbers do add up, still more would go to hell than heaven, and he desires to save everyone no matter who they are. You can't simply tell God to just lower his standards or forget about them, because that's the equivalent of someone having a sick child who's dying, but the only way they can be saved is if they have this treatment. For your child to get it, you must work hard to earn the money and invest your time and energy into getting it. When you are almost to the last of your payment, the doctor comes in and says, "Give up. It's no use. Just let them die." If you were that parent, would you give up knowing that you're so close? The doctors and everyone around you may not see it, but you do. It's the same with God. What stood out to me and my husband the most is that we had these experiences in the middle of all the disasters happening around the world. And almost every day a message is released asking us to offer up what we can, to pray, and most important, to be charitable. It reminded me of a saying Mother Claire uses all the time. Many are called, few are chosen, and even fewer respond. I thought about all the indifference, selfishness, and greed in the world. Also those who are desperately in need of love. There were so many names on the 2 pages that could have potentially been saved that day, if only they had a little more grace. I wonder how many people we pass by each day and get a tugging in our spirit to reach out to them, to tell them God loves them, to do something nice for them, and we ignore it thinking it's just in our heads. But what if that was the last grace they needed to know that there is a God and He loves them? Our prayers, sacrifices are so effective, but I can't help but think that also charity is needed. To give you a beautiful example, for our ministry outreach, one particular day, we wrote love messages from Jesus on the boxes and put some goodies in the box. We decided to go somewhere else this time and hopefully find some people who we could minister to. We were not expecting anything extraordinary. I mean, we never do. And it was just our pleasure to serve these people. We stopped by a guy who was sitting near a clothes store, and we called over to him. We told him that Jesus loved him and handed him the box and a drink. He took a look at the message, and with a big smile he put the box up to his lips and he kissed the box of goodies. That day we were hoping that if nobody was touched, at least we could touch one. And I believe that same week was Father's Day. So I believe that was a beautiful gift to God. It brought us to tears because we did not know how many days that guy had gone without eating, or he must have been praying or at least hoping someone would recognize him or give him something to eat. Who knows? Maybe that same day he realized for the first time that God was listening and God cared. So even though we are at the end, it doesn't mean that the love stops. It means that the love continues all the more with everything you give to the Lord. Whatever it be, let us strive to be lights in this darkness as Jesus comes again, and with love and our prayers, things may not stop, but things will definitely change. So that's the end of my small little message to you guys. And I hope it encourages you to continue to show love, to continue to show charity, and to continue to think about others, as well as to continue to offer up your prayers and charity and sacrifices, and to always look out for somebody that you could touch in whatever way it might be. So, may God bless you guys. Later.